It was a chilly autumn evening when the Anderson family found themselves stuck on the side of a lonely road. Their old minivan had broken down, and no amount of tinkering could get it to start. Exhausted from trying to fix it, they sat on the curb, the children wrapped in blankets, and the hum of their surroundings was the only sound that kept them company. The road ahead was deserted, and the nearest town was miles away. It seemed like the kind of night that would only add to their stress. The family had been on their way to a relative's wedding in a neighboring state, but now their plans had come to a screeching halt. A sense of hopelessness started to settle in as night began to fall. They knew that if they didn't get help soon, they'd have to spend the night on the side of the road. Out of nowhere, a sleek black car pulled up next to them. The family looked up, slightly confused but hopeful. The window rolled down, revealing a man with an unmistakable face, Elon Musk. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice calm, but filled with the kind of confidence you'd expect from someone who had a way with problem-solving. He was dressed casually, just another guy on the road, except for the fact that he was a global icon who had changed the way we think about space, technology, and even the future itself. The Andersons exchanged surprised glances before the father, Mark, stepped forward. "You're Elon Musk?" he asked incredulously. "Guilty as charged," Elon said with a grin. "I was just passing through and saw you guys stranded. I figured I could offer a ride." Without hesitation, the family piled into Elon's car. The kids sat in the back, still in shock over their unexpected savior, while Mark and his wife, Laura, settled into the front. As they drove down the road, Elon made casual conversation, asking about their trip, their family, and how their day had been going. For a while, it felt like any other ride, with the hum of the road and the gentle buzz of the car's electric engine filling the air. But then, Elon began talking about something much more profound, a subject he had always been passionate about: the future. "You know," he said, his voice taking on a more serious tone, "most people go through life not really questioning what they're capable of. They don't realize the power they have to change their own lives or the world around them." Mark and Laura listened closely, intrigued by the shift in the conversation. The kids were quiet in the back seat, as if sensing the importance of what was being discussed. Elon continued, "The thing is, life's challenges, like the one you're facing today, are temporary. You've got a van that's broken down. It's frustrating, sure, but you'll get past it. The thing that's more important is how you respond to the challenges you face, not just the problem itself." Mark glanced at Elon, clearly impressed. "You really believe that, don't you?" "I do," Elon replied. "Every failure I've ever faced, every time I thought something was impossible, it was just a signal for me to try harder, to think bigger. I didn't let it stop me." As they drove through the countryside, Elon shared stories of his own life, how he had faced skepticism from almost every direction when he started Tesla, SpaceX, and the other ventures he took on. He spoke about his failures, the hardships, and the many people who told him he was wasting his time. But he didn't let any of that dictate his future. "You know," Elon said, "every person has a gift they can offer the world, but sometimes it's easy to get bogged down by the difficulties. You've got to find a way to push through and stay true to what you want to accomplish." Laura, who had been quiet for most of the ride, finally spoke. "I think we've been so focused on just getting through each day that we forget about what we really want. It's hard to think big when you're just trying to survive." Elon nodded in agreement. "That's exactly it. The key is to step back and look at the big picture. The small obstacles, like a broken-down car, won't matter if you can learn to rise above them and think differently. You've got to be able to see opportunity where others see setbacks." As the car passed through the town and headed toward the highway, Elon's words began to sink in. It was like a weight was being lifted from their shoulders. The Anderson family had been struggling with their day-to-day responsibilities, balancing work, family, and their future goals, without realizing the bigger picture they could pursue. "Thank you," Mark said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I don't think I ever would have heard that if it weren't for you, Elon." Elon gave a small smile. "I'm just a messenger. You guys have everything you need to succeed. Just remember, it's all about how you look at things. Life is full of challenges, but it's also full of potential. As the ride came to an end, Elon dropped them off at a nearby service station where they could arrange for a tow. The Andersons thanked him again, and as they walked into the station, their minds were buzzing with new possibilities. What Elon had said had sparked something inside them, a realization that they were capable of more than they had ever imagined. It wasn't just about fixing the car or getting back on track for their trip. It was about taking a step back and evaluating their lives, their dreams, and their ability to shape their future. Months later, Mark and Laura decided to take a leap of faith. Inspired by the words Elon had shared, they started their own small business. It wasn't easy, but they had learned to embrace failure, to see it as a stepping stone rather than a roadblock. Their business began to thrive, and their newfound sense of purpose transformed not just their professional lives, but their personal lives as well. The family was closer than ever, working toward common goals and supporting one another along the way. And as for Elon Musk, he remained a part of their story, not just as a famous billionaire, but as a man who, during a random ride, had changed their lives forever. Months passed, and the Anderson family's life began to transform. Mark and Laura had taken Elon Musk's words to heart and were committed to making changes. Their new business venture, which they had started with little more than a modest investment, was growing steadily. However, like all entrepreneurs, they had their fair share of challenges. The first few months had been tough. There were late nights filled with doubt and frustration. Mark spent long hours working on the technical side of the business, while Laura handled the marketing and customer relations. Both of them had moments where they wondered if they had made the right decision. Their savings were dwindling, and there were times when it felt like the weight of the world was pressing down on them. But neither of them was ready to give up. One day, Laura sat at her desk, staring at a spreadsheet filled with numbers that didn't add up. She sighed, rubbing her temples. She was exhausted and overwhelmed. But then she remembered something. She thought back to that ride with Elon and how his words had sparked something inside her, a belief that they could overcome anything if they stayed focused and kept going. Mark, who had been in the garage fixing an issue with the equipment, walked in and saw the look of frustration on his wife's face. He knew the feeling well. He walked over, placed a hand on her shoulder, and sat down beside her. "What's going on?" he asked gently. "I don't know, Mark. I'm just worried. What if we're not cut out for this? What if all this work, all the sacrifices, were for nothing?" Mark stared at the numbers on the screen, his mind racing. Then he remembered something Elon had said during that ride. It's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. He looked at Laura and smiled. "Remember what Elon said? This is just another challenge. And we've got what it takes to get through it. We've already come this far. Why stop now?" Laura took a deep breath. She hadn't expected him to be the one to lift her spirits, but in that moment, she knew he was right. The challenge they were facing now wasn't any different from the struggles they'd faced in the past. They had always found a way to make things work, and this time would be no different. Determined to press on, the Andersons decided to reevaluate their approach. They reached out to a business mentor who had offered advice during the early days of their venture. With their mentor's guidance, they refocused their efforts, streamlined their operations, and reworked their marketing strategy. But the breakthrough came when they decided to take a risk. They would take the lessons they had learned from their journey and apply them to a community-focused initiative. They would use their business to help others who had faced similar struggles. Families, in particular, who had to make sacrifices to provide for their children. They wanted to create a space for families to come together, support one another, and share resources. They named the initiative the Anderson Family Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provided assistance to families facing financial hardship. They partnered with local businesses, schools, and community centers to offer workshops, food drives, and financial aid to families in need. It was their way of paying forward the inspiration they had received from Elon's words. As the foundation began to gain traction, Mark and Laura felt a new sense of purpose. Their business had grown, but it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about making a real impact on the community. Their success had allowed them to give back in a way that mattered, and that made all the difference. Months later, as the Andersons stood at a community event hosted by their foundation, they saw firsthand the difference their efforts were making. Families who had once been struggling to make ends meet were now thriving, working together, and supporting each other in ways they never thought possible. The foundation's work was becoming well known, and the Andersons were recognized as leaders in the community. But none of this would have happened without the one pivotal moment: the ride with Elon Musk. His words had been the catalyst for their transformation, pushing them to think bigger and pursue their dreams with renewed energy and resilience. As they stood on stage, surrounded by smiling families and children playing, Mark turned to Laura and whispered, "We're making it happen. We're changing lives, just like we dreamed." Laura smiled, her heart full. "And we're only just getting started." In the end, the Anderson family had not only turned their business into a success, but had created a ripple effect of positive change that extended far beyond their own lives. They had learned the true meaning of resilience, and now they were teaching others that with hard work, determination, and a willingness to give back, anything was possible. Elon Musk's words had sparked a revolution in their hearts, and that spark had set a fire that would burn brightly for years to come. As the months passed, the Anderson Family Foundation blossomed, far beyond what Mark and Laura had imagined. What started as a small effort to help struggling families in their community had now grown into a nationwide movement. Their foundation had become a beacon of hope for families facing hardships, offering not just financial aid, but a sense of belonging and a new perspective on what it meant to overcome adversity. The foundation's work had touched the lives of countless families. Local communities had rallied around the initiative, with volunteers pouring in from all over the country to offer their time and resources. Schools partnered with the foundation to provide education and mentorship for children, while businesses contributed to food banks, workshops, and job training programs. Families that had once felt isolated and defeated now found themselves part of a larger support system, working together to overcome challenges. Mark and Laura were humbled by the impact they had made, but they knew they couldn't rest on their laurels. They had a bigger vision in mind, one that would take their mission to the next level. They realized that the work they were doing was just the beginning. With their newfound success and influence, they could do even more to create systemic change. They decided to launch a national campaign aimed at reshaping the way families, communities, and businesses thought about support. The campaign, United for Change, would call on all Americans to come together, offering not only their resources but their time and empathy as well. It was a call to action, a movement designed to dismantle the stigmas surrounding poverty and hardship and replace them with hope and solidarity. But their biggest challenge came when they received an invitation to speak at a major national summit on family and community welfare. The summit, which included leading political figures, business moguls, and activists, would provide the Andersons with a platform to share their story and expand the reach of their foundation. At first, Mark and Laura felt overwhelmed by the idea of speaking in front of such a powerful audience. They had come so far, but now it seemed like the stakes were higher than ever. They spent weeks preparing for the event, refining their message, practicing their speech, and making sure they could articulate the change they wanted to see in the world. The day of the summit arrived, and Mark and Laura were nervous but determined. As they stepped onto the stage in front of thousands of people, they were greeted with a standing ovation. The audience recognized the work they had done, and now they were ready to hear what they had to say next. Mark began the speech, speaking passionately about the challenges families face and the importance of community support. "We all have a responsibility," he said, his voice strong and clear, "to take care of those who are struggling. It's not enough to simply give charity. We must create systems of support that help families stand on their own, that help them build a future where they don't have to choose between putting food on the table and paying for health care. The foundation we've built is just the beginning. The work is far from over." Laura followed, her voice unwavering as she spoke about the power of empathy and the need for a culture of kindness. When I think back to the moment we met Elon Musk and he told us to think bigger, I realize now that he wasn't just talking about our business, she said. He was talking about our vision for the world. We can all do more than we think. We can all make a difference, but we can't do it alone. Together, we are unstoppable. Their words resonated deeply with the audience. As they spoke, the room grew quiet, everyone hanging on to their every word. When they finished, the applause was deafening. It wasn't just appreciation for their success. It was admiration for their authenticity, for their willingness to challenge the status quo, and for their commitment to making the world a better place. After the speech, Mark and Laura were swarmed by reporters and attendees eager to learn more about their journey. They answered questions, shared stories of the families they had helped, and talked about their plans for the future. But even in the midst of all the attention, they remained grounded, knowing that their mission was far bigger than any recognition they could receive. Back at their foundation's headquarters, things were moving quickly. With the national exposure from the summit, donations and volunteer support flooded in. Businesses and individuals from across the country were eager to get involved, and soon, the Andersons were able to launch several new programs, including financial literacy workshops, job placement assistance, and mental health support for families in crisis. One day, as Mark and Laura sat in their office, looking over a new round of applications for their job training program, they received a call from Elon Musk. He congratulated them on the success of their summit speech and the impact their foundation was making. "You've done it," Elon said, his voice warm with admiration. "You've taken the first step in changing the way we think about support in this country. Now, keep pushing. Keep challenging the system. There's so much more to be done." Mark and Laura thanked him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the guidance he had given them. His words were still guiding their every decision, helping them stay focused on the bigger picture. Years later, the Anderson Family Foundation had grown into one of the most influential nonprofit organizations in the country. Their work had expanded beyond what they had ever imagined, touching the lives of thousands of families and reshaping the way communities thought about poverty, success, and support. And for the Andersons, the journey wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about creating a world where families didn't have to struggle alone, where they had access to the resources and support they needed to thrive. It was about leaving a legacy of compassion, hope, and action. Their story was a testament to the power of perseverance, the importance of empathy, and the belief that one person, one family, one foundation could make a difference in the lives of millions. And it all started with a ride, a moment of inspiration, and the courage to dream bigger than they ever thought possible.